Now, I always said that World War III wasn't possible, but it is getting closer to it now, and I'll explain for the reasons why. During the early infant stages of nuclear weapons, a few countries got together and tried to make it literally impossible for any other country to have these weapons because they considered themselves to be more mature as a country. Now, whether that's actually accurate or not, I'll leave you to decide that. However, there were a few great superpowers, and then two predominantly came out of that as being America and Russia. Now, we've had nuclear weapons for some time. France has, can't remember the other ones. Anyway, we're part of a thing called the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, I believe, or something like NATO. Now, at the moment, Biden's government have decided, in their infinite wisdom, that they want to give long-range nuclear weapons to Ukraine. This is very bad. But it isn't just that. Keir Starmer, old two-tier Keir, wanted to give weapons to them earlier, long-range, but has decided to wait on until the Americans decide they're going to do it, because pretty much that's what Britain does. Waits till America dives head on into something, then joins in. Now, the problem is, before, I always said that there wouldn't be nuclear war because all of the big countries that have had nuclear weapons for some time realise the outcome of that and would never be the first to cast the first stone. But when you give a lunatic country with a cokehead fuckwit as its leader, who's boasting about just how much power he's got when he's in an interview and swearing about Russia, then we're talking about something totally different. But it isn't as simple as giving another country the nuclear weapons and saying, there you go, chap, off you go. Because those nuclear weapons need satellites to guide them. They need numerous other bits of technology that Ukraine simply doesn't have. So that actually means that either the Americans or countries within NATO have to assist in the launching and that missile getting to its destination. And Russia know this, and Russia has said that the Ukrainians can't do it on their own and they can only do it with the help of NATO. So I will consider that if any weapons are launched against us from Ukraine, that it has been a declaration of war from America, the United Kingdom, etc. This is very, very bad. Now, I knew that the Democrats were like spoiled kids who take their ball home with them. But I didn't realise that they would be so utterly bitter and twisted that they would have a scorched earth policy. Now, some of you may know in history that Hitler decided to have a scorched earth policy. As he was losing the war, he would say, let them conquer nothing but ashes. Well, here's the thing. If Russia ever did launch on us, okay, and America, there would be very little left. And the unfortunate part about nuclear war is that what happens is all of that shit goes up into the atmosphere and literally blocks out the sun. So you'll end up in what they call a nuclear winter, where the temperature would drop chronically, crops won't grow, we'd have very little daylight, and those that didn't die of nuclear fallout, cancer, etc. like that, may well starve to death. It's an unfathomable thought. Now, I don't think Joe Biden is within his right mind to have even decided about giving Ukraine these weapons. It's somebody else. People within his government, and not just forgetting that during the Cuban Missile Crisis, one of the generals was such a war hawk. His statement was this: if there were only 3 people left on the planet, 2 of them were American and 1 of them were Russian, I'd consider that a victory. You can't even comprehend the level of insanity, but they're there. Now, some of his advisors may be getting buoyed up by other people who will make trillions out of this. Now, I don't know the age of the weapons that they'll be giving to Ukraine, and I don't actually know what the chances of these payloads hitting their target, given the fact that Russia has some serious technology. During the Cold War, Britain and America had to spend huge sums of money to try and keep up with the Russians. And we had to go and debate what they were going to use and all the rest of it, and we had to offset our expenditure against the people, because people needed services and stuff like that. Same in America. With Russia, it was like, let the people fucking starve and just put everything into the nuclear arms race, which at one point they had better rockets than the Americans. But anyway, I could go on about Reagan and the Star Wars thing, because if he hadn't have pushed forward with that Star Wars, there is a chance that back then him and Gorbachev could have literally reduced nuclear weapons to next to nothing, which would have been great, but it never happened. But going on to now, we are a target for the Russians. If Zelensky manages to get the weapons over there and set up and launched, then there'll be a declaration of war from NATO states, because they have given Zelensky the ability, the weapons, and the targeting, the use of satellites, etc., to hit right into the center of Russia. It would be the worst possible thing to happen in my lifetime. That's how bad it is, right? However, like many things, you cannot get a weapon system, send it over to somebody who's never used it before and go, there you go, chap. There's sites that have to be made for it. There is training that has to be done. Unless the Americans are going to send over soldiers who have been trained to use these weapons and then dress them up as Ukrainian soldiers. Because it wouldn't be the first time that one country, predominantly the Americans, have used what they call mercenaries in other countries to commit acts of aggression against communist-liking countries, to say the least, right? So they have form for doing it, and I suppose we've probably done stuff abroad as well like that, but not quite as much as the Yanks. Now, the American people don't want this. The European people will not want this. Personally, as a British person, I don't want this. Now, what's happening between Ukraine and Russia needs to stop, personally. But if they launch a nuclear weapon, it's game over. And as I say, I'm hoping that they can't set anything up within at least 2 months. And if they can't, I'm then hoping that Trump will come in and say, you're not having our satellites to guide this thing. You are now holding on to a weapon that, as far as you're concerned, is impotent and obsolete for you anyway, and you need to give it back. However, two-tier Kia is a total coward, but he will do what he's told to do. And the people that want this, can you imagine just how much? Say, for instance, if British people, or if Great Britain gives these weapons, how much that will cost us to replace? And if we're selling them the weapons, then somebody has to lend Ukraine the money to buy them. And Ukraine's going to be in debt for fucking hundreds of years to international banking. You know who they are. So the people that pull the strings and make things like this happen are the people that will fund both sides and make large sums of money out of it. But it does make me wonder just how insane the Democrats are to have pulled this stunt, because it is blisteringly stupid. And I'm hoping that nothing happens before Trump gets in and that Trump can reverse this. Now, I'm not thinking that Trump's the saviour and all the rest of it, but he is anti-war. And he says that Biden administration have just literally started World War III, which they could have. And I'm not going over the top on this. If one of those weapons is launched, we're fucked. So I should be keeping a close eye on this one. Happy Monday, everybody.